Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. Dereliction of duty. That is the subject of tonight's Waters Words. A 5-time deported criminal illegal alien shot an American citizen with a stolen gun in the sanctuary city of San Francisco. Confessed, and a San Francisco jury found him not guilty of murder. How could this happen in America? Here are the facts. Jose Inez Garcia Zarate is a Mexican national who had been convicted of 7 felonies in the United States. Some of them were aggravated felonies and others heroin manufacturing and other crimes involving narcotics. Zarate had been deported 5 times and kept sneaking back through the unsealed southern border. Zarate admitted on camera that he kept coming back to San Francisco because it was a sanctuary city. It would not alert federal immigration officials when he was arrested, therefore protecting him and his criminal activity. Zarate was picked up on a marijuana charge in 2015. ICE requested that the San Francisco Sheriff's Office detain Zarate when he was arrested. But Sheriff Ross Mirakimi ignored this request because he chose not to cooperate with the federal immigration officials and released this criminal alien back onto their streets. A little while later, a handgun was stolen from the car of a federal agent. And days later, Zarate used this handgun and shot 31-year-old Kate Steinle, a San Francisco native. Now, after the shooting, Zarate threw the gun in the water and ran away. He was picked up by police and confessed to the killing. First, he gave police a bunch of aliases. Then he said he stepped on the gun and it accidentally went off. Then he said he found the gun and it accidentally fired 3 shots. Not sure how that's even possible. Then he claimed he was shooting at a sea lion in the San Francisco Bay. He also told police he took sleeping pills before the shooting. It was clear the man was a reckless junkie who didn't belong on the streets of San Francisco. But the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco refused to take responsibility and would not admit that their sanctuary city policies led to the death of one of their own residents. I visited San Francisco City Hall to confront the politicians. I'd like to address your dangerous sanctuary city policies. I'd like to show you a picture here. This is Kate Steinle. She was murdered by an illegal alien who had been deported 5 times and over 6 felony convictions. But for some reason, the city of San Francisco let this guy out. You guys aren't even looking. Look at the picture. You afraid? You guys don't have anything to say?
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Zarate was put on trial for murder, involuntary manslaughter, assault with a deadly weapon, and it was a pretty clear-cut case. In fact, Zarate told reporters that the courts should give him the highest punishment so that he could tell Kate Steinle's parents in court that he no longer wanted to live. But his defense attorneys did a number on the jury. His team claimed that he found the gun. His team claimed that the gun had a history of misfiring and painted Zarate as a sympathetic character. Meanwhile, the prosecution downplayed the involuntary manslaughter and assault with a deadly weapon charge and laid their entire case on the murder 1 charge, arguing that Zarate deliberately shot Kate Steinle. Either way, it didn't matter. He still did it and deserved to be punished for it. But the jury didn't think so and acquitted him on all charges except illegally possessing a gun. So including the time already served, he's not looking at too much prison time. Zarate's defense attorney decided to attack Donald Trump after the verdict.
There are a number of people that have commented on this case in the last couple of years. The Attorney General of the United States, the President and Vice President of the United States. Let me just remind them that they are themselves under investigation by a special prosecutor in Washington, D.C., and they may themselves soon avail themselves of the presumption of innocence and the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. And so I would ask them to reflect on that before they comment or disparage the result in this case.
Now, with all due respect, the attorney is a self-righteous hack politicizing a tragic death. Also, we haven't seen one tweet from Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, or any other Democratic leaders about this. A beautiful woman is gunned down on the streets of San Francisco, the shooter escapes justice, and the party of women is silent? I wonder why. Well, obviously the president wasn't going to remain silent. firing off a series of tweets. A disgraceful verdict in the Kate Steinle case. No wonder the people of our country are so angry with illegal immigration. The Kate Steinle killer came back and back over the weakly protected Obama border, always committing crimes and being violent. And yet this info was not used in court. His exoneration is a complete travesty of justice. Build the wall. The jury was not told the killer of Kate was a 7-time felon. The Schumer-Pelosi Democrats are so weak on crime that they will pay a big price in the 2018 and 2020 elections. So the federal government needs to step up to the plate and deliver the justice that local officials failed to deliver. Jeff Sessions can hit Zarate with a federal felony, 10 years imprisonment for an illegal alien in possession of a firearm. Now, if he's sentenced consecutively with the state gun conviction, that would keep him locked up for 13 years, at which point then he'd be immediately deported back to Mexico. But if we don't have the wall, he's probably just going to sneak back in. Now, building a wall and eliminating sanctuary cities would probably have saved Kate's life, and she would be alive today, enjoying the holidays with her family. But sadly, she's not. Bill O'Reilly has been crusading for Kate's Law, named after Ms. Steinle. Kate's Law would impose a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence for an illegal alien caught crossing the southern border. Kate's Law already passed the House, but is stalled in the Senate. And I confronted Illinois Democratic Senator Dick Durbin back in 2015.
Just a quick question for you. Why don't you support Kate's Law?
Tell me what that's all about.
You forgot already. It was the hearing last week.
No, I was at the hearing, but tell me what aspects of it you're
protecting Americans from criminal illegal alien killers.
I think we should work to make sure that Americans are protected from those who are criminal and threaten our communities.
It's a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence for deported illegal aliens convicted of aggravated felonies.
Convicted of aggravated felonies?
And they get deported, and we catch them when they come back. To support that 5-year mandatory minimum?
I'll look at it carefully because I want to protect everyone. But I also don't want to discriminate against people who come to the United States and are asking for an opportunity to become legal in the U.S. You know, the president now has insisted if that's going to be the case, they have to go through criminal background checks. I think that's a great thing.
We're not talking about innocent illegal aliens. We're talking about criminals who traffic in narcotics.
I answered your question.
Well, I hope you support it because I expect that you want to protect people like Kate. You do want to protect people like Kate, right?
I want to protect all Americans.
No, you don't, Senator. There's a reason that there's no reason the Senate shouldn't take up Kate's Law immediately and get it on the president's desk. San Francisco and its corrupt politicians have blood on their hands. Furthermore, the federal government's inability to secure the border also contributed to this tragedy. A country without laws and borders is not a country, but the left is okay with that because open borders gives them political power. And I'll leave you with this. Kate Steinle's father testifying in front of the Senate back in 2015.
Kate was beautiful, kind, happy, caring, loving, and deep in faith. Kate had a special soul, a kind and giving heart, the most contagious laugh, and a smile that would light up a room. Kate loved to travel, spend time with her friends, and most of all, spend time with her family. In fact, the day she was killed, we were walking arm in arm on Pier 14 in San Francisco, enjoying a wonderful day together. Suddenly, a shot rang out. Kate fell and looked at me and said, "Help me, Dad." Those are the last words I will ever hear from my daughter.
Now, a father should never have to hear those words. It is our local, state, and federal government's duty to help and protect American citizens from criminals coming into this country and doing us harm. And they have failed. And now it's time, the citizens' duty, to make sure we never let our government fail us again. Joining me now with a reaction to the verdict, the host of the Ingram Angle, Laura Ingram. So why don't Democrats want a wall, and why do they want these sanctuary city policies? What is the real reason?
I think the real reason, ultimately, Jesse, is that they want to replace the current electorate in the United States, that electorate that in Ohio and Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida voted for Donald Trump, with a new electorate. And that new electorate, if the demographic changes bear out that we've seen develop in Virginia, That will create a California, a Florida, a Texas that looks like New York and Connecticut and Massachusetts. So I think the Democrats mostly want to replace those, old white yahoo conservatives with a new group of people who might be a little bit more amenable to big government, who don't necessarily have a big affection for the Second Amendment or our Constitution. And a lot of the Republicans who don't want to secure the border haven't wanted to. Yep. A lot of businesses love the cheap labor. And so there was an unholy alliance between both the left and the right for years, until Trump came along and basically called them on their you-know-what and said, this is what the people want. They want a real border, they want a real government, and they want safety and security. He ran on protecting Americans and legal immigrants from this kind of carnage. Yeah. The fact that this was allowed to happen in the first place, as you said, and it was a fantastic monologue, was beyond abominable, but it happens every day in different levels and different forms. And we're seeing it. Do
you think that Democrats are willing to take a loss of a Kate Steinle or someone like that, buy an illegal in a sanctuary city in order to further their political agenda?
Absolutely.
So they're okay with, people dying as long as the open borders keep happening?
It's kind of like on the sexual harassment stuff where you have women saying, well, if a few men have to be accused, and they're innocent, but they have to go through hell, it's worth it.
Wow.
They are more afraid of conservative, Christian, traditional Americans than they are ISIS, Al-Qaeda, illegal immigrants, drugs coming across the border, guns, human trafficking. They can talk a good game, how they're pro-women, and we're all about women. I can tell you who doesn't have any women's reproductive rights right now, Kate Steinle. And a lot of people like her.
That's a great point. All right, more sexual harassment accusations against Democrats this week. The fifth accuser came out against Senator Al Franken. She's an Army vet who says he groped her on a USO tour. Quote, when he put his arm around me, he groped my right breast. He kept his hand all the way over my right breast, and I remember thinking, is he going to move his hand? Was it an accident? Was he going to move his hand? Franken, now trying to rehab his image, sat down with the local Minnesota CBS affiliate, WCCO.
Have you ever placed a hand on some woman's butt?
I can't say that hasn't happened. I take thousands and thousands of pictures. Sometimes in crowded and chaotic situations. I can't say I haven't done that. And I am very sorry if these women experience that.
But hasn't your credibility been undermined?
I would say yes.
So Franken has no credibility there. He said it himself. And speaking of no credibility, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi now flip-flopping on whether Congressman John Conyers should resign. The Michigan Democrat dealing with 4 individual accusations. One of the accusers spoke to NBC.
He invited me into the hotel, and he has undressed, down to his underwear. And again, it was the proposition of sexually satisfying him.
Wow. So the Democrats have a real problem on their hands in the House and in the Senate, Laura.
Well, both parties have had issues here, but
to be fair.
Yeah, to be fair. But let's talk about Al Franken.
Yeah.
When he just first of all, that clip, I thought I was watching Saturday Night Live. Stuart Smalley again. But he says, well, it'd be crowded and chaotic situations. Wait a second. Your hand cups a woman's breast. That's not crowded and chaotic. That's just gross, okay? So the whole thought of that is gross. But then he's like, well, I guess that's hurt my credibility. The man has incriminated himself. Yeah. He tries to go and do this local reporting thing, and then he thinks that somehow this expiates him from any future accountability. This is what Democrats will always try to do. He's kind of beloved for a lot of reasons. Yeah. He's a celebrity. He's so liberal. He's made a lot of alliances in the Senate really smartly. And unlike Conyers, who's 88 years old.
Right. He's halfway out the door.
Well, as my friend Raymond Arroyo said, he has actually been there so long. It's not only during LBJ that he actually was elected, but Mary Poppins came out the year that he was actually elected.
So he's 78, 88, something
he's 88,
like that.
Yes, almost a nonagenarian, Jesse.
Wow.
So it's time to step aside.
I know, and I think it's time for him to step aside as well as Al Franken. Nancy Pelosi in a little bit of trouble because she has called for Conyers to get out of there. Hasn't said really much about Al Franken. Now the Congressional Black Caucus is saying, you know, listen, Nancy, a little bit of a racial double standard here.
So
is she in trouble?
She's getting a little taste of the identity politics.
It's about
medicine.
time.
I mean, it's always whose ox is gored. Now she's feeling it. They always do that to conservatives. They've done it to Fox for years. The American people, you're anti-woman, anti-immigrant, anti-this. And now Nancy Pelosi, San Francisco values, San Fran Grand Nan, as I like to call her. Now she's subjected to the same identity politics, you know, garbage that the rest of us have been subjected to. And I'm enjoying the moment.
Yeah, you look like you're feeling very sorry for Nancy Pelosi.
I'm broken up. I can barely continue tonight.
All right, but the biggest bombshell this week, Today's Show anchor Matt Lauer, the $20 million a year man, fired after accusations of sexual harassment with staff. Details include sexual intercourse in his office, causing a woman to seek medical attention, sexting with interns, and other forms of workplace harassment. Since then, people have taken a fresh look back into Matt's past on-air behavior.
Pretty sweater. Keep bending over like that. It's a nice view.
I went into your office once. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Snooping, and you had a huge bag of sex toys. And do you remember this?
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes, you did.
What is Matt's most annoying habit?
He pinches me on the ass a lot.
Okay, so, Laura, it seems like a lot of people at NBC News were a little aware about Matt Lauer. How much culpability does NBC and the staff and the talent have?
Well, did they tolerate and perpetuate a hostile work environment? A hostile work environment is one of the ways you can prove an atmosphere of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is a very defined term in the laws. People kind of throw it around very blithely. But in this case, if it can be proven that NBC knew, not just that there was a complaint filed, but that old Jeff Zucker over at CNN who said, oh, this isn't the Matt I know. Right. I've only been best friends with him for 25 years. I mean, I don't know how many best friends that people know that you don't know anything about their predilections, but nevertheless, if you can prove that NBC understood the hostile work environment that had been created by Lauer and maybe others who were covering up, that not only could be actionable civilly, but it could be a conspiracy against NBC, a RICO conspiracy. There are ways to pursue this that are very scary.
So you're saying it's a class action possibility?
It could be. These women get together and they say, look, we want the documents.
Wow.
We want depositions. We want to put you under oath. It's nice for Jeff Zucker to go to a conference, and he may actually have known nothing, but I worked at NBC during some of those years. I was at MSNBC. I know all these guys a little bit. I knew Jeff Zucker a little bit. I knew Matt Lauer. I thought Lauer was perfectly nice. But they're under deposition. That's a different deal.
So the shareholders are going to take a bath now. I mean, this was a $500 million a year franchise.
They've made a lot of investments without naming the obvious names that haven't really been panning out so well lately.
No, they have not. And Megyn Kelly now, the biggest star these days. And it looks like she's jockeying for position to maybe take Matt's seat.
That's not going down so well with the staff.
And that's causing a lot of consternation over there. Yeah. NBC has not done well recently. When you put the fact that, you remember back in the 90s, they spiked the Juanita Broderick rape interview expose.
Initially, then they finally let it run.
They finally let it run afterwards.
I was with them then at MSNBC.
Okay, so and then also the whole expose over Weinstein was spiked, and he had to shop it over to the New Yorker.
Pirro.
Exactly. So it looks like a pattern of cover-up.
A pattern in practice of tolerating hostile work environments and perhaps predators in their midst. It's not pretty, and the shareholders at some point.
It happens everywhere. I mean, listen, it happens in a lot of different places.
Fox has had the questions raised about Fox News. We all know that, but in this case, with the charges that they're making one after the other, which are so gross, I don't even repeat them. I mean,
I don't even like to.
I don't even like to say them because children pass by television. But at some point, don't shareholders want more of a say? I mean, this is a huge amount of money that they're putting out year after year after year. And what are the returns? And what is it worth? What is the money actually worth?
Well, I mean, they realized they had to cut this guy loose immediately because it wasn't worth defending him for another 24 hours.
No, here's your severance.
He lost $30 million of severance.
Yeah, here's your severance. Nothing.
Exactly. All right, Laura, thank you very much.
Great to see you, Jesse.
Up next, Pocahontas. Back now talking about the Democratic sex scandals rocking the mainstream media and Congress. Joining me now to discuss are Fox News contributor Tomi Lahren and contributor of The Federalist, Britt McHenry. Okay, Tomi, I want to keep this in personal terms. As a young woman coming up in the business, how do you navigate these situations where if you have an older boss who's a man and say he wants to take you into his office or on the road and, you know, things can turn like that, where do you draw the line?
Well, here's the deal, Jesse. I guess I grew up in a very different way than maybe some of these women. I've always been very outspoken. So I said in my final thoughts the other night, if you touch me and I don't want to be touched, it'll be the last time you touch me. I can promise you that one. So I think that for young women in this industry, it's just about empowering young women.
Right. No, listen, you're from down south. You're probably packing. And this stuff doesn't happen down there as much as it does in New York, I can imagine. Britt, you worked at ESPN. Mm-hmm. Were you ever reticent about either going on the road or going into the offices? And how did you deal with it?
So just to give you a breakdown of what the newsrooms are like, the Associated Press did a report in 2014 that said 90% of sports editors were male. That's just in the newsroom, right? So I was probably one of 3 females in a football locker room covering the National Football League.
That must have been tough.
You toughen up. If I was to get offended by every little joke, every little thing, I would have lost a job in 2 weeks. So I think there needs to be due process and investigation, and you just need to take things case by case, because I think there's a difference between sexual assault and sexual harassment. Neither are okay, but you need to take them by case.
So Britt brings up an interesting point, Tomi. What is due process? Because we're not talking about the law. This is all happening in corporate America or in Congress. So should there be a different platform? Because right now, accusation, allegation, goodbye. Everybody gets fired. How do you think it should go down?
It's really difficult to navigate it right now, because then you run the risk of women coming out that maybe are not telling the whole truth, or maybe they're trying to seek some kind of revenge on either a politician or someone in pop culture, entertainment, sports. And so I think that that's a sensitive area that we need to navigate right now. But I will say this, I think the best way to draw attention to it is through the First Amendment. It's being outspoken. It's drawing attention to it when it happens. That to me is what is such an issue here, is that 20, 30 years later you have women coming out, and I would hope moving forward that if something happens to you, you'd be able to say it when it happens or very close to when it happens, and then there's more of an opportunity to correct the wrong and then move forward quickly.
I completely agree with that. And I think the lesson, Britt, after all of this is if something happens, you immediately go to a supervisor or HR or someone and tell someone. Now it's all chaos, so no one knows what to do. If you now, 20, 30 years from now, looking back, how would you see this climate? Because I think right now men are scared. And you could get to a point where women are going to be denied opportunities to advance in corporate America because men don't want to be alone with a woman, don't want to be in the same office as a woman, and that could have repercussions.
I was just having that conversation with someone. Like, I'm not a feminist, but it seems with this climate, the future is female, or may not be, as you mentioned, because of these concerns. You look at the Al Franken photo and how many years elapsed before that came to light. I think that, however, it did come to light, and in that case the reporter was sleeping, was not part of the joke. So when he tried to dismiss it as part of a joke, when someone's unconscious, that's not funny, right? So we need to factor the entire scenario in, and I just hope that women feel their strength now, but also keep these considerations to not ruin lives or careers.
That's true. All right. Well, speaking of scandals, the media is trying to cook up a new one for President Trump, running wild with a joke he made referring to Elizabeth Warren as Pocahontas during an event at the White House this week honoring the World War II contributions of Native Americans.
You're very, very special people. You were here long before any of us were here. Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas.
Here's how Senator Warren fired back.
It is deeply unfortunate that the President of the United States cannot even make it through a ceremony honoring these heroes without having to throw out a racial slur.
Tommy, a racial slur. Pocahontas, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
I think it's pretty rich that she would bring up someone using Native Americans to their advantage, and that's exactly what Elizabeth Warren did. So let's not forget that she got that nickname, Pocahontas, because she lied to advance herself. She exploited Native American heritage. It's all on her, and now it's poor Elizabeth Warren. No, I'm sorry, I don't think so.
All right, Britt, take it away.
Put the journalist cap on. There was a genealogist that said she had 1/32 of
That's it?
American Indian heritage. So imagine if a Republican claimed a minority ethnicity off 1/32. They would be raked over the coals by the media. So I don't just blame Elizabeth Warren. I blame the media for giving her a pass to continue to lie about her heritage.
It's true.
And the Washington Post fact check told readers to research it themselves.
Well, if there's white privilege in this country, I don't know why she's claiming Native American heritage. Tommy, Britt, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Thank you.
We're debuting a new segment, Fox News Fun and Games. I cooked it up. It'll be a classic. But before we get to that, real quick, former National Security Advisor for Donald Trump, Michael Flynn, pled guilty Friday to making false statements to the FBI about his contacts with a Russian diplomat. Ed Henry, Fox News Chief National Correspondent, is here with that. Now, why is this a big deal?
Because he was inside the White House, number one, as National Security Advisor. It was easy to dismiss the trouble that Paul Manafort got into because he was at the campaign for a hot minute and then was gone.
So this is the transition.
So this is a transition, but also remember he was in the White House for a week and a half or something, but he was there. And he lied to the FBI. That is a problem. It is against the law, and that suggests you're hiding something. However, I would say everybody should calm down. We saw sort of this media hissy fit, which frankly we saw after Manafort, too. I remember people basically screaming on TV, this is a big deal. They're coming for the president. They're going, they're storming the gates at the White House. Lock them up. And you know what? The Manafort thing really, at least so far, things can change, turned out to be a whole lot of nothing.
So Flynn is
more serious. He lied to the FBI.
You can't do that. So he's saying, I was told by the upper echelon of the Trump transition team to reach out to the Russians to see if they could...
but then also during the transition, reach out to Russia to talk about sanctions at the UN. I think there are people around the president saying that's what the incoming National Security Advisor is supposed to do. And if it suggests contact with Russia, that is not collusion,
Contact
Jesse.
is not collusion.
That is not collusion.
Okay.
But there's a lot we don't know about this investigation, so that's the caution.
We're going to take it one step at a time. Now, we are going to do a new thing I cooked up. Fox News Fun and Games. We thought we'd spice up Henry's life. It's very boring down here in D.C., so we're going to have some fun. Who has the best hair at Fox News? Is it Tucker Carlson or is it Leland Vitter? What say you?
I think it's Tucker because it's more natural. I mean, I don't know what's going on with Vitter.
Wait, you're accusing Leland of
I'm not
having
saying it's fake.
Plugs?
There are questions.
There are questions. There are rumors.
No rumors.
It's too good to be true because I think Leland's hair is perfect.
Well, right. Is anyone's hair perfect? Whereas
it's
Tucker,
too perfect.
Also, what I like about Tucker, it's like he got out of bed.
He doesn't care.
Comb his hair.
He doesn't care.
Also, his shirts don't match the ties half the time. This is like the king of cable now, and he's barely trying, which is good.
He wears it well. It's like that preppy coif. I'm going to overrule you, and I'm going to go with Leland. All right. Who would win in a fight, Pete Hegseth or Rob O'Neill? And for those of you who don't know, Rob O'Neill killed Bin Laden.
It's got to be Rob O'Neill.
You're going to go with O'Neill.
I'm sorry, Pete. I mean, Pete and I are on Fox and Friends Weekend a lot, and I think he's a tough guy. And he was in the Army, and but Pete, bye-bye.
All right.
You'd be gone in a minute.
So you're definitely going with the guy that killed Bin Laden.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going out on a limb here. I mean, this is the easiest question.
You know what? I was kind of coming in here thinking I was going to go Pete because he's pretty big, but he's got that formal training from Afghanistan. I'm going to go with Henry. We're going to go with your question. Best dressed,
Me?
Ed Henry or Britt Hume? Now, I'm going to weigh in here. We just threw you in here at the end because we wanted to make you feel good. Britt is a very well-dressed guy. He has the tie that matches the shirt, that matches the pocket hanky. You yourself have a pocket hanky.
I try to show that off, but I have to, in this case, I have to defer to the veteran who was at Jack Anderson, the newspaper columnist, long before I was. That's where I got my start, and then paved the way at Fox News long before I got here. And so he's paved the way, not just in dress, but in news. I got to go with the man, the myth, the legend, Britt Hume.
Are you wearing any cufflinks right now?
Yeah, I am.
The cufflinks. Let's take a look at those bad boys.
This is like a watch. I don't know if you can see it, but it's sort of like little watch parts in there.
Dials,
little
yes.
dials. And
okay.
So I like to collect watches. So
all right. Well, that's good to know. Smartest. James Rosen or Charles Krauthammer. Now, Rosen was going to be on tonight, but he chickened out.
Yeah.
So,
in that case, I'm going with Charles.
You're going with Charles. Yeah. You know, this is a runaway for Charles. That's not even a question.
It's not even. This is a landslide.
It's not even close.
I mean, you know, I love Rosen. His office is right next to mine here in Washington. We trade things. But there's like Beatles music and all kinds of weird things coming out of his office all the time. Whereas Charles, you see him as the deep thinker, right in the columns. I got to go with Charles.
All right. I'm going to go with Charles, too. Sorry about that, James.
All right, Rosen.
All right, Ed, thank you very much. A hot debate coming up. A Virginia school board chairman is making waves after telling his students they don't have to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. He recently tweeted, "Attention PWCS students and staff, you are not required to stand for the national anthem or pledge. There will be no action taken against you for choosing to not stand or participate. Our president is a bona fide idiot, but you are safe in PWCS." Ryan Sawyers is chairman of the Prince William County School Board in Virginia, who is also running for Congress. He joins me now. Now, just so our audience knows, there's a law from a long time back that doesn't require public school students to stand. But then you went so far as to call the President of the United States an idiot. Do you think that that was the right thing to say to young students?
I think it's important that the students that have been sitting in our school district for years, long before this became a cultural thing, the Supreme Court ruling that you're talking about goes back to 1943. Right. And, of course, the First Amendment, religious reasons or any other reasons they see fit for years, are concerned that, you know, someone may attack them for doing the same, and it's important to know that they have someone on their side.
Let me go back to what my initial question was. You're telling young students that the President of the United States is an idiot. Do you think that's an appropriate thing for you to say as someone from your position, the head of the school board? I
think it's an honest thing to say.
Well, it's honest to you.
It is. No,
that's your personal opinion.
Absolutely, and it's my personal Twitter account. And so ultimately, I think anyone that doesn't like the language that I use has to kind of take the same steps that I did when John McCain was called not a war hero. I had to explain to my children that he was. Okay. So if they don't like my language, then they can certainly adjust and explain that to
so would it be okay if any school board president injected their own personal or partisan opinion into the classrooms or the student body?
I think it's every citizen's right to speak their mind. I mean,
so if your successor came in and said Trump's a genius, we should all make America great again, you wouldn't have a problem with that?
I think there's school board members that do that on a regular basis across the country.
Okay, so there's a lot of politics in the school that you're at, apparently, because it looks like you can say whatever you want to the students. And personally, I think, you know, you give the students information and then let them make a decision. Don't inject your own partisan politics into it.
Well, we all have our own opinions on everything, and ultimately it's a private Twitter account that I use to communicate to not just students but to everyone.
Yeah, but you know your role as the county school board chairman is just more than your Twitter account. They're going to read it, it gets picked up, and you represent that job.
Look, there's nothing that I can do that the president hasn't already done. And to steal his line, this certainly isn't unprecedented.
Do you think you're disrespecting the office in front of these children, though? Because it's not just about Trump or Obama. It's the office. You're insulting.
I think ultimately...
You don't? By calling the President of the United States a bona fide idiot?
He's trying to create a culture war to distract from, obviously, a terrible tax plan. And ultimately, that leaves local officials like me making sure that our 90,000 students feel protected. So
other people think the President's just defending the flag.
Calling the President an idiot is certainly not nearly as harmful as challenging where he was born. Okay. So there's no way that a school board chairman can be... you can't convince me that a school board chairman can bully the President of the United States.
I didn't think you were. I'll give you one last chance. Do you want to apologize for calling the President an idiot?
I'll apologize for the typo, but not calling the President an idiot. Absolutely not.
All right. There he is. Ryan, thank you very much. Up next, psychedelic mushrooms. You guys don't do magic mushrooms, do you?
Usually go out into the woods, and I do it more as a spiritual quest.
Great spiritual quest, Wolfie.
You'll actually see, like, sounds, potentially, like...
You can see sounds?
Yeah, sometimes.
Can you hear smells?
I'm freaking out, man.
Magic mushrooms are not legal in any state in the country, but that may soon change. A new California initiative calls for the decriminalization of psychedelic shrooms. And my next guest is leading the charge, saying magic mushrooms will help people bridge the political divide. He's Kevin Saunders, who's also running for mayor of Marina, California. He joins me now. Okay, so Kevin, next year marijuana is going to be legal in California, and you want to put magic mushrooms into that mix. Do you think that's a smart idea?
I do. I also think it's a natural progression from medical marijuana and recreational marijuana legalization that seems to be sweeping the country.
So you think going from weed, which is, you know, say what you want about it, you're not really going to hallucinate, to adding mushrooms into the mix, and you're going to have people seeing smells and hearing colors, as you heard in that last package, and just running around. You think that's wise?
Well, I think if you're over 21 and you're able to make an adult decision after educating yourself, I think that what you're going to find are people using it for depression, using it for cluster headaches, using it to beat various addictions. We have studies now coming out from Johns Hopkins, UCLA, University of Alabama, Birmingham, Imperial College of London that have essentially told the story that a lot of us have known for a long time, that taking things like psilocybin can dissolve ego and allow a person to see outside of the box. And I think...
Well, listen, I think seeing outside of the box is a good thing, and certainly people's egos in Hollywood need to be dissolved. And I get that it's a spiritual experience, and I'm empathetic with that. But to then legalize it or decriminalize it throughout the entire state when California's already got so much on its plate, I just think that it's going to cause a lot of problems, if you know what I mean, just in general day-to-day life, on the road, in the stores, at the mall. You don't see that potentially?
I don't. I think people have a really strong respect for mushrooms. I think that they're considered sacred. I think now when we have people like Terrence and Dennis McKenna, Joe Rogan, Eddie Funksta of California, who is a visionary.
Wait,
and
Eddie
is leading, his last name is Funksta, F-U-N-X-S-A.
Got it. All right, so we're not going to agree on this, obviously. I just think, Saunders, that you're opening up a whole can of worms. I mean, if you keep it illegal, I don't think any more or less people are going to do it. But if you decriminalize it, I mean, it definitely takes the stigma out of it, and it definitely makes it more available. I'll give you 15 more seconds. You think 18, 19, 21-year-old kids doing it recreationally, you think that's going to be good for state of affairs in California?
No, it's 21 and over. Anybody that does it under 21 will be held under criminal sanction. And my girlfriend and partner and co-proponent Kitty Merchant and I feel that California is ready, and we're ready to have this conversation.
All right. Well, California's definitely ready. I don't know what they're ready for, but they're definitely ready. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you,
Up
Jesse.
next, last call.